Hello, sir.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, Dimitri.
Nice.
Jared.
Hello, hello. Hello, Rob. How are you?
Krieger.
I am good. I'm good. So I'm plugging in my better microphone, and I should be sounding better. And how are you doing, Demetrius?
Doing very well. I'm very excited for the session today because I had an idea of what we're going to talk about, and it's a very interesting topic to me in terms of engineering and from the side of developing knowledge bases. And from my perspective, I also applied the same way into my own app development, where I'm building an MVP for creating knowledge bases from transcripts. And I not only used the graph database, I also used the SQL database. And let's talk a little bit about this approach. I give some better understandings for so everybody can get what is the point, the challenge, and what makes it so interesting. The thing of using the SQL. So, in the world of AI, when we want to build a database that can be used as the knowledge for this AI to give us more reasonable responses, we need a database where we can build the relationships between different objects. Okay? One object is Robert as a person, another object is David as a person, and another one is Demetrius. All of them are people with their own profession, and they're linked to each other. So in this database, we can store the information that Rob is running Snappy AI. Dimitris is running the organization Three Nuggets Consulting. David built the IndaList application. So we know which people is related with each other. And when we ask AI that uses this as a brain, it can give us more reasonable information. Now, in engineering now, the way we have to build this database is using relational databases, where it's totally free for us to build multiple nodes into different objects. He built random relationships based on what is the actual relation between the aspects into what we describing. So for that reason, it's totally recommended to go with a graph database. And one database we have shown many times in these meetups conversations is Neo4j because of the easiness of using it. And in the last conversation, we had also the opportunity to talk about the Surreal DB, which is another similar tool, and also the dgraph database for bigger nodes, basically. Now, let's get to the point for today's conversation. I had a talk with Robert a few weeks ago. I said, okay, let's go and build a graph database for you, man. And he said, okay, why not to use an SQL database? And the thing is, SQL databases have a couple of limitations. You know, specific table for every single object, and the relationships, the links between tables are limited. We cannot expand the linking between the tables and the objects. This is the thing of this limitation. But Robert had a very nice alchemistic thought. I really appreciate it. And he thought, like, okay, let's build a framework so we can build a knowledge base and store the data in the right way into an SQL database. Because the way we store them makes a lot of sense for AI to query the data and find the responses. So, before we get into your role to start the presentation and sharing your methodology, I'm really curious for David. Uh, I would love to ask you, David, what's your experience building knowledge bases, this kind of work? Have you ever tried to do something similar?
Yeah. My I'm working with SQLite in a phone, and the way I am structuring my data is that I am taking words. Let me see if I can just share my screen, and I think that might help clear things up.
So you use for the app the classic way of the SQL database, right? Column based where you store information. You have a couple of links with each other. Do you store there graph database type of information like nodes, edges, relationships, even as a text, as free text in the free text field?
Well, the way I'm going about this is really different than a lot of ways. And I'm having some trouble here getting into the way here we go. When I am thinking about how to find uh, a record, can everybody see this now?
No, you're not sharing your screen.
Okay. My bad.
No worries.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen, but I'm not showing what I want to show. There. Okay, you can see this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let me back up one screen. So I have a record that is displaying an image, and I have a label, and then I have notes about that name these four women, and Emily, Sasha, Sally, and Jane. And what I'm attempting to do here is to create a way to locate that record very quickly. And the way I do that is to identify the elements of all of this in the form of words, and these are come up as single words, but they're also going to be transformed into tags. And by doing that, if you tap any one of these tags, friends, Sasha, wedding, Emily, Sasha, this record is going to pop up. And what that means is that if I tap on Pat, which is my wife's name, or Emily, what ends up happening is all of these words that were in this earlier record also show up. Now, the implication of that is that now I've tapped on Emily. Emily's in this record, and Emily is in this record. And only one photo has both Emily and Jane when I tap these two tags. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Let me jump back to this. So when I tap on Emily and Jane, or is that what it was? Emily and Jane, yeah. Here's Emily here and Jane here, and these are all in my notes here. So Emily and Jane are in this record, but they're not in every record. And so with this data arrangement, I can search the tags and come up with just those records that have Emily and Jane in them. Now, if I jump into a different category, let's say eating out, if I want to look at restaurants, I look at different places, and these are all the restaurants that pop up, and these are the restaurants. And if I tap here, leaning pear, leaning is one of these elements. And so restaurants and leaning brings up these three elements, these three records. If I tap on restaurant and IPA, then leaning pear is the only one that has IPA in the note. So I'm limiting that. Now, the other thing is that if I delete restaurants from it, then I have two records because I have IPA in both of these records. And the value of that is that I can rapidly look at these things and dial into this very, very quickly. This is the actual IndaList frame, and this is actually something I'm working with because ChatGPT screwed this up in one of my refactors, and that is a problem. But if I delete this, unfortunately, this is kind of crazy. I end up with here, and then if I go here, this is not what's supposed to happen. The actual tutorial should show restaurants and all the Shazy records. This is what I'm trying to get the code base back to what it was, like in December. And this is an error, but I am looking at a different way of getting close to a record instead of finding a specific path. And when, let me see if I can use a different analogy.
It makes little.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and get back to you guys. I had this thing with my wife yesterday, and she was looking for the password for one of her accounts. I forget which one, it was Microsoft, whatever. And she had, this paper with, all of her passwords on a sheet of paper. She's old school. And I said, there's a better way to do this. She doesn't want to use, Google passwords. And I'm sure that all of you are familiar with that. Because when you are looking on your phone, you have all these different things, like you have to get an authenticator thing from facial recognition. You're looking for which authenticator. Is it Authy? Is it Microsoft? Is it iCloud? You don't know where your authorization or facial recognition is supposed to be. You just know you need something, but you don't know where it is. And this is all in bringing in friction into actually logging in. And so that is the struggle that certainly older people have. But I'm sure Dimitri, you're nodding your head. Yeah, you have this problem. You want to get logged into an account, but you don't know where your facial recognition is going to be recognized, because you have 2, 3, 4 different validation channels to do that. And what we discussed, what ChatGPT and I discussed this morning, is that if we can create a scaffold where we can use what I just shared with you to create a pathway. Yes, we need passwords to Microsoft, and we're going to use Authy as a facial recognition pathway or something like that, or use 6-digit code. Then this smooths the whole pathway. You don't expose the actual password, but you might also include a hint as to what that password is going to be. You know, we use that all the time, and by creating a scaffold for that information to be easily identified, instead of going through 4 gates to get all this information together because you don't know where it lives in one place, you have to search your entire PC or whatever to find that information. And what I'm doing is to allow a single source of information to scaffold that information. So, oh yeah, I'm looking for the password for Microsoft, or in my case, let's say it's Squarespace.
Mm-hmm.
And I know precisely, okay, I need to go to Squarespace, and I need to use this facial recognition, and my username is David78737 and not my full email address. And then, so it's narrowing my resources down to a very limited pathway. And I know precisely how to get into Squarespace to do the work that I want to do. And these other mechanisms that are cluttering up the people's heads with how do I get into my fucking app, and I mean, how often do we use these things? And it just tears your hair out because you don't know how to do it, and you have to go through these sequences again and again, and you just tear your hair out. And I spent like 8 hours in Apple day before yesterday trying to do all this because I couldn't remember the pathway to get into the flight test or test flight in order to do this. And so, that's what I'm hoping will create or facilitate getting into all these different applications. I looked, let me see if I can find this real quick. And I'm sure you have a similar thing, and I'll share my screen.
It's crystal clear, the case study, definitely, because we all face that. We get into many applications every single day and we struggle with the passwords. That's why we save them on the browser level. And from the previous conversation I had with Robert, a quick fine-tuning and addition in the SQL database can really solve that challenge. I'm pretty sure because we tested. He tested on his side and I tested on my app too, and I find incredible results, to be honest. So I would recommend to get into Robert's side and get started with the framework. How you get started, Rob? Why do you decide to remain on the SQL? And by the way, we're using the Xano database for that. So we have the cloud version also, not only a dedicated database. And would you like to tell us more about the case? And also, I would love to see from your screen what you showed me last time was incredible.
Absolutely. We'll be more than happy to. I will pull up, I think, what we were looking at last time, because I think it makes a pretty good example. And I think also, in general, I would say that it's kind of interesting because the way that I approached this was
the reason I used SQL, the reason I used Xano was just because it was easier for me to visualize what the hell was going on. And so for me, it was like a method of being able to just be able to approach a problem. I like to use Xano just because I find that it's going to force things to be clear.
in a lot of ways, like me, or at least to a certain degree. And later on, I'm always willing to swap out parts of Xano because Xano is like 6 different products in one. I can always switch out the part, and so on. However, turned out to be a pretty good solution in itself. And what that solution kind of looks like right now is basically I have conversations with people like all the time, right? And they're being recorded, right? So like I have this crisp application that's always running. Automatically, those transcripts, they get put into this table. It's called crisp transcripts, right? So pretty simple. Those transcripts, they come, they arrive here, and just give it a second to load. Okay, great. All the information, the basic information that was already there, is being put in here, like the participants, the duration, and so on. But this is where I started. Like I already had this going, and it was okay. Like I was extracting action items from this, and so on. And then I had a conversation with Dimitris, and he told me about knowledge graphs and stuff like that. And I thought, well, how could I take this and turn it into something that's perhaps searchable, like on that level, and perhaps even more. So fine, this is where the transcripts are. That's easy to comprehend. Now, what I added an extra step to this, which is what came from that conversation with Dimitris, which was that extra step is to further analyze. I'm going to actually just wait. I have a lot of stuff running on my computer right now. So it was to actually further analyze and to say, well, what if we were to extract context from these transcripts about who knows who and who knows what, and to try to create edges and nodes and basically a brain, an understanding of the relationships between all of these things. And so now we get into these entities. So every time now that a new transcript comes in, and I also ran, it's called backfilling when you run it for previous entries. So I did a backfill on like the previous 100 transcripts that I had in order to make it so that I have data to work with. And what this does is it actually now every time a transcript comes in, there's an AI that specifically its job is just to extract entities, to go through that transcript and to say, okay, so what are the entities? These are entities. Robert, I'm an entity. Even there is a David, and even David Richardson. There's also David Richardson is also here because we have been in common conversations before, right? Like where we've been in state change conversations, and even Demetrius, certainly you're on this list, right? But you also appear on this list multiple times. I appear on this list multiple times because this is something that that a new transcript comes in, and every single time it's going to extract entities, and they may be repeated, right? So that's the first step, is extracting. Second step is consolidating, right? There's a process that also runs which combines, which merges entities, right? But basically all to say that let's just keep it simple. We're extracting entities, we're putting them here, we're just making sure this list is clean. Fine. Now these are all individual. We're all on this list. Now there's relationships. This is where we get into where this is where it starts to get interesting. Now you have entity to entity, right? Because everything is related to each other. So it's like, for example, actually any of these. I mean, these are. I mean, there's over 3,200 records here, right? And this is not even all of my transcripts. So what it's doing is connecting all the dots from every transcript. What is the relationship between every entity? And all of this is information. And it's also saying properties, right, for these different things, like what is the status and so on. And so, again, a way for me to even just be able to really come to understand the mechanism of these things, and also at the same time create something that is useful genuinely for myself, something that I could also use, which I'm going to get into now. Like, well, how do you actually use these things? So the way that I use it is actually I have an MCP tool.
Can I interrupt you? Sorry, I have a question for the development part before we get into how we use it. Okay.
Yeah.
Designing a database, even if it is an SQL database, even if it is a knowledge base graph database, the core challenge is on how do we define the actual schema of this database. And I would love to ask you, when you analyze the transcript, which actually it's raw data, it's text, free text, how did you use the power of computer or AI, whatever it was your methodology, to extract the schema that you actually applied in this case, or what you thought to create just 3 tables in this Xano database and just fill in the data?
So that's a point. Trying to see if I understand Dimitri's question. Typically, you have one-to-many, many-to-one, and many-to-many kind of relationships, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
I think, Dimitri, that is the question you're asking, is these relationships that Rob has, are they many-to-many or one-to-many or many-to-one?
The actual question is how in his process, in Robert's process, he realized what would be the relationship, one-to-one, many-to-many, or one-to-many, and so on. And how he structured the database, like the columns and the number of tables.
Well, I would just say that, like, first of all, though, how do I know? I would say it is, I try to set myself up.
I have a lot of tools and things that allow me to be able to iterate very quickly.
And be able to test very fast. So, like, how do I know? Honestly, I don't know. I just in the beginning, like, how do like I'm trying a lot of things really, really rapidly, and I'm doing it in a way that that I know that I'm setting myself up to know whether it's working or not. Like, there's a number of variables that I know for sure, right? Because I've built up to this. I know Xano, I know these tools. I have it already, like, before even our conversation, I already had been experimenting and working with a lot of this stuff. I've put my question marks only in a couple of areas. Like, so, at that point, like, because I can see, I know roughly, like, I begin with the end in mind. I know what I want is basically to have some type of system that's, like, mostly agnostic, in the sense of, like, I don't really want to have to rebuild. I would like to create something that I could extract and be able to apply to many things. So what I tried to do was actually stay away from, and again, maybe it is not the best way to do it necessarily, but I tried to stay away from defining anything that was too strict in terms of like, here's like how this table schema is specifically, because then I find, like, the conversations I have, they range so much that means that I'm gonna have to at least start thinking about keeping up with that in terms of also expanding the schema. So that being said, however, you're right that the way you extract that information, like, for me, where my focus came, like, where I focused on in order to add that nuance there, right? Like, in order that optimization of, like, what are we actually extracting from these transcripts and how are we approaching them? It's actually right here, where it says prompt version. This is the extraction log, right? So here you can see is V1 and then V2, right? Like, this is actually something that I'm able to impact, which is, and it actually really, the reason why this exists is because I realized
this makes a huge difference. Really, at the end of the day, if we're not at the moment of extraction, if the AI is not really aware of what my priorities are and what I'm really looking for
out of this, it means that downstream, when I look at my list of actions, when I look at the things, that the qualities that it pulled out, the relevant things, and it's not going to really be able to find things that are relevant to me, because it didn't have that perspective when it first extracted the information out of it. And so, again, this is just the way I looked at it, but what that allowed me to do by looking at it that way was that now I have something that kind of applies to any topic because I have these entities. None of these upper columns here are really like business specific, right? It's just like, okay, person, embedding, transcript, last scene, first scene, so on. David, please.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, I'm trying to figure out what success, what do you want a query to present to you that means, this worked. You know, if you're using this, then we can work backwards, if you will, from the result that you're trying to achieve and how do we get to that result? Can you work it from that aspect? Right.
So I'm going to show you now. This is actually, so yes, I tried to, at least like I like to use myself as a guinea pig. So I tried to find, and I find that it's a pretty good North Star for trying to find something useful out of it. Like if I'm not genuinely at some point, using this as part of my day, then it's just usually products are better when I use them myself. So with that being said, I try to make that true through the MCP tool that I use, which is I'm calling it Charlotte MCP. But basically, what this tool is, it has all of my stuff in it, right? Like you can send emails from it, everything related to me, basically to act on my behalf. Now, what I find interesting about the Charlotte MCP is that for it to be able to work effectively, it needs context, it needs information, and that seems to be an opportunity to tie in that solution that we just talked about, right? Like because okay, fine, if I can search through all of my transcripts, which are in the knowledge graph and is vectorized and embedded and all of that stuff, that's something that would be helpful for a tool that's in charge of sending out emails on my behalf and knowing what I did in the past and so on, right? So now here I am in ChatGPT. I've turned on developer mode. I actually made a ChatGPT app, which which ties in with everything we just discussed. So I'm just going to give it a shot. I'm going to say use Charlotte MCP to search for Ray. Show me the widget. So this is actually something that I only did yesterday. Actually, I started on this yesterday. That's part of it, and I found this to be really cool because I know this is not the main. Just in terms of like building blocks, again, this MCP, all of that stuff existed before this. This is like a final layer on top of it, right? So that just to say that like this is like a visual part, but it's really not the main thing. Oh, see, now it actually did not show it. But actually you can still see, okay, so visual part didn't show up. That's fine. It's like a ChatGPT thing, but it still was able to see the information, right? So it's showing for Ray, and like here's the entities, like here is Ray, right? And like in the different forms, and here's a confidence scores of like how sure we are this is Ray. Again, this is like internal tool, right? But the idea is that like, okay, here's all the transcripts where Ray has been in that call. Here's all the decisions that have been made in the past related to Ray, right? Like, have we sent an email to Ray in the past? Did we draft an email for Ray? Why did we send that email to Ray? And then we start to get into this brain, right? Like if I think about it from my brain, if I think of Ray, it's actually not too far away from some of these topics. Like, I mean, in the sense of like Ray is a person obviously consolidated all together in a different context that we know him, the different conversations, and also the ways that I've interacted with him lately will impact how my next decision for how I'll interact with him. I wouldn't send him 3 emails in a row. I would consider if I had just sent him one 10 minutes ago, or if I had sent him one yesterday, and the AI now knows all of this just by searching for just Ray. Just by searching Ray, all of that stuff is surfaced automatically to it. In a few different categories. And all of this information actually comes from like this this foundation of entities and the relationships between them. Yeah, David, please.
Yeah, so I noticed that when you were searching for Ray, it probably took like 30, 40 seconds to come up with this.
Yeah, and this is a ChatGPT thing, by the way. Just wanted to say.
Well, okay, but you're looking into your database, and I would like to suggest that if Ray is one of these common things that you're looking for, if you were to create a separate table that had Ray as one of its elements, and you could somehow recognize which of these documents Ray was in, then you could jump to that very, very quickly. And instead of looking at 40 seconds, you'd be looking probably at 2.
Okay, so let me show you now this actually. So now that's a very good point, and that's why I also made this source of truth, right? Because there are things that exist. That's why I have a table called people. And this is where I start to get into like, okay, I know Ray exists. I know his email. I know certain things about him that are true, right? And there's a relationship between that, like, curating certain information, or at least confirming certain information, or even this information, like for people, let's say I have FreshBooks, right? I have invoices. That's information that comes from external database, which is something that is very helpful as like as a source of truth, right? Like if I search for Ray, what it should do, and this is the idea of it, it's maybe not doing it right now, but exactly as you said, that it has also this as part of its brain, so that it sees Ray and it sees, oh, okay, like I have all this Ray here, but Ray is also a person in this people table. And what's the confidence of the fact that like that's probably the Ray he's talking about? Probably almost 100%. So like let's prioritize that and consolidate that with the rest of the information. And so yeah, all to say that I think for me the what I noticed was, and I will say that like you're right, this is very slow. Usually when I use this, it's about like 1 or 2 seconds if I use it in Claude Code. However, for accuracy, yes, I found it to be very necessary actually to start to establish tables that are true all the time, like that they have truth of like, these are my FreshBook invoice clients, these are my Google contacts, these are like, there are sources of information that seek to they fill in the gaps, and they are and they are tied to sources of truth that are not coming out of the transcripts. They actually support the transcripts, in that they are trustworthy because of where they came from or the fact that curated them.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Dimitri, are you still in this conversation?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm trying you guys. I like the conversation and the flow. Robert, would you mind to show us how you use the MCP to process all of this creation and create the records, the tables, and so on, and how you actually get answers into your questions? Because that's the point. It's not how we store the data only, is the way the reason we store that way the data is because we're looking to answer our questions, find the password we're looking for. So yeah, would you mind to show us that?
Yeah, I mean, like, for me, I dog food stuff a lot, right? Like, so I'm using this, I'm eating my own dog food. So what does it look like? And it really looks like this. Like literally on this other screen, I have Charlotte MCP and I'm walking through with it to have it do more and more complex things. And so really what this looks like is a constant evolution of, I will say this, right now, this is not useful to me, right? Like I can know stuff better than this can tell me. However, that's just true today, right? It's something that it's something that needs to be useful in a whole bunch of different dimensions. Like it needs to be able to truly follow through on these very complex things, right? So like the context I'm putting it in is at the very center of my business life. This is something that requires a lot of iteration, let's just say. However, what does it look like to get better and better, or like to actually use it, is a lot like just like this, right? Like I don't want to feel like I am using it. I want it to just be part of me using it, right? Like, and the reason, and that's why I like to put it within the context of an MCP tool, because it's able to, like through an MCP tool, I can bottleneck it. Like those are choke points, right? Like it has to search through this tool, it has to execute through this tool, it has to. So because I have like, let's say 2 different choke points, one is search and the other one is execute, everything has to go through those 2 doors. It means that every time it searches, I'm forcing it to search through that search, that unified search. So it has to consider everything, and I'm improving the quality of those results. And then the second thing is that every time it executes, it has to provide rationale for the execution that it took, and that means that it has to also include information about the entities that were part of that decision, right? So that we can start to get into, and I'm going to show you this. And this is like something else that is directly, again, building on it, like one layer at a time. I'm going to show you decision traces, right? So like when it starts to make decisions and everything. But David, please.
Yeah, it sounds like every time you're doing this query, you're asking AI to look through all of your transcripts for what's relevant. And my question, if not suggestion, is is there a way that you could use AI to pull out the major themes so you're not looking through the entire text, but certain defined themes or subject matters so that your search is actually faster?
Well, here's the thing. Actually, I have this actually on. Yes, it is going through all the transcripts, but it's actually going onto Cloudflare AI Search is what I use, which is a really good really good AI powered search. And basically, I have everything being vectorized onto Cloudflare AI Search, and then I'm able to search through it. Like it's like it's less than a second. It's extremely fast. There's actually even just benchmarks for it. But if I go to my dashboard, I'll to say that, like, I just want to add that nuance, because it's not readily apparent from me showing it here. But basically, if I were to look at some of this stuff I have, let me just see if I can find a processor for it. But essentially, yeah, like it's going all the way into Cloudflare, into AI Search, just being embedded and vectorized, and then it is, and in that way, that's actually what I'm searching through. So every time that I ask it to say, like, hey, can you search through my transcripts? And I think this actually goes back to the beginning of the conversation about using SQL. I'm just using it as a foundation to be able to organize everything here first. But when it actually comes to searching through any of this information, it's all on Cloudflare. It's all going to Cloudflare, because that's really where that's what, otherwise, because I've done an A/B test. I did it here. I actually made my own search. That was actually, I can just even show it to you right here. I made a vectorized search on Xano, and because I was just at that point I was seeking to understand. Here, this is reg vector search. So at this point, I was just seeking to understand, like, the mechanics of this, how it works. So I just built it on Xano. It took like 30 seconds to search for anything, like, and it was horrible. Like actual 30 seconds in Xano, which means if I was going to do that through ChatGPT, it would take like 5 minutes probably. So, but basically, I quickly saw that this was not doable, but I saw that, like, I could organize the documents here, and then I could send it over to Cloudflare, and then, so yeah, all to say that, like, you know, there is a very important part of this is to use, at least so far for me, to use Cloudflare. And I just want to just sign in just to show what I mean. And theory.
I want to come back. Where are my workers?
Here, and we have AI search, and we have snappy transcript search, and you can see that every so last sync 2 hours ago. So this runs every 6 hours. It automatically will it will embed again, and so this is really the behind the scenes when you really remove a lot of this stuff and you go behind everything. It all boils down to this. Really, it all serves to create this organize all of this organization and everything. Yeah, basically and you can see here just the log of everything, basically when did it start the job, and all the transcripts. I'm not even clicking anything right now. It just seems to be just refreshing on its own. But it's taking it, it's batching it, and if I were to run this, it doesn't take long at all. For it to do this for a whole bunch of transcripts, for my transcript would take less than a minute. And yeah, so, but all to say that this is what then allows the performance to be really good, really, really fast if you search, once it ends up being searched through here.
Yes, David, have a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, as you're doing these updates or automatic regenerations, it seems like, and I don't know this because I haven't done this myself, seems like you'd be burning through a lot of tokens to do this. I don't know if that's true or not. Is there a way to build this incrementally where your search is not a complete rebuild every time, but is incremental in its build?
I was worried about that too. And then I found out that every time I run this, it costs me, I think, 1 penny is actually what it costs, literally 1 penny. So I thought, at that point, I get it.
It's a lot, man.
And then even as the AI, I'm like, wait, how much is this costing? I'm like, stop running it all over. And how much? He's like, it costs about 0.013. I'm like, okay, just run it. Or just run it. I'll live with a penny per run. But yes, I think for me, I've because of the scale of it and again, it's mostly me just wanting to move quickly. I look at it as, even if it were to cost more, it's just an investment into my own study of the topic. But yeah, no, for sure. When it comes to a larger scale, that probably does become something to consider. At this stage, but based on just this, whatever I've experienced so far, it just hasn't become enough of a problem. I would also add this: it's just because you can batch this, you also get that strategy of just being able to leverage, because batch is cheaper. So because you can schedule it in advance, you could also benefit from the fact that it can be cheaper for those services.
Yeah. Well, looking at your, it appears, and I could be wrong here, Rob, it appears that you're doing this project for your own benefit. Is that correct? Or is this something you want to market, or
everything I do is I feel like everything I do, the beauty of it, I've tried to do this on purpose, is that my life and my interests and my business are all very much aligned with each other. So the stuff I'm interested in, they also, I've really tried to make it stuff that the market is interested in. And I'm always, and me being at the center of it and using it myself, I found it has only led to me being able to make better products. So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling,
Absolutely, man. Like you said, eat your own dog food. And, I applaud what you're doing here. This conversation, and let's see, we're winding down to close to an hour. I'd like to show you what I'm doing after it's fixed, because I think that you would benefit from, seeing what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And I think that you would really speed things up and have a faster response that you could scale. I mean, what I am attempting to do with IndaList is create something that doesn't require precision diving into the data. And I think when people are looking for stuff, as opposed to a computer, when a computer is looking for stuff, it knows precisely the pathway through folder after folder after folder after folder. It knows precisely where this file lives. People are not like that. And so the ability to get close and rapidly reduce the number of choices you have to get into what precisely it is you want, I think the potential benefit of that strategy is incredible, because people think differently from machines, but today we're forced to behave like machines, and it's a big put off in the market, generally speaking.
Yeah, and that's what I am attempting to, and I think that I've solved. I just need to get this particular file back on course. But the way I've done this, it's incredibly fast, and you can, if you go from 5,000 records to 3 in 2 taps, and then you can look at that. It might not be the one record you're looking for, but if it's 3, you can tap as an individual. You can tap through those 3 records. Oh yeah, this was the one I want. Yeah, exactly. And as a person, I think that's a really important part of it, is that this creating, helping people become more like cyborg in a way, like where they are with the person and the machine. At least that's the way I look at it for myself. I am enhancing my own like working closer with the machine and enhancing like my own ability to work more quickly and my ability to ask it to retrieve information for me, and then I can sort through from the remaining options that it puts in front of me. I can provide that final, a touch, but it needs to meet me there, and it needs to provide some good, it has to do its job, and which is, I think, what you're saying is that like it narrow it down to 3 might not be the 3 perfect ones, but the human will know which one is, and then perhaps even use that as further training, perhaps into like, okay, the human chose this one, maybe next time I should remember that, and then be able to do a better answer next time.
Yeah. I think there's a huge potential in the strategies that I'm developing. And are you familiar with Venn diagrams?
With the circles, right?
Well, you have a universe of stuff, let's say the plant life, and then you have plants that live in the south and plants that live in the west, and you have plants that live in shade or water or dry or whatever. You can filter in your own mind down to that level of specificity based on certain criteria. That's one data model. It's been around for a long time. And initially, I thought that was what I was doing. And it turns out that that's not what I'm doing. And that was kind of a surprise for me. That was a discovery that IndaList is doing this in a different framework. And I had to get ChatGPT to put it in a different context for me to get it. Oh, it was like, wow, yeah, now I get it. Now I get why this is so cool. And that was exciting. That was really exciting.
No, it is. And it's just really also just amazing how much, there's a lot of nuance when it comes to the context that it's being applied to, which I think is also why it's exciting, is because like there is, I think that depending on what you're trying, like with the application that you're building, David, like that one has, I'm sure that there would be things that you would consider that for what you're aiming for what you're ultimately trying to retrieve, that I would have to consider differently for what I'm trying to achieve. And I think that's a good thing, actually, because it just means that
that doesn't, everybody working towards this thing. I think that there's a lot of skills that are just being built up on the way. That it isn't like a solution that I look at as like, oh, this is gonna be like one size necessarily fits all. It's like a combination of techniques which seek to, all align to make this true, like, and optimize this way of working with machines. But yeah, I just think it's also just very exciting just because there's so much, like, as I look into different verticals and different industries and everything, there's always something new. There's always like, oh, well, this one has this particular twist to it, which we have to also consider. And then it also goes back to Demetrius, where you're saying about like, well, how do you even start with like the knowledge graphs and like maybe just that business context of like, what is it that's important that should be surfaced from all of these transcripts and even just put into a database in the first place.
Yeah, that's class 1 kind of investigation.
Yeah. May I have a question? Because I'm really curious. How does the search to find the right answer does really works? Does the process embed the question so it performs the semantic search, or it immediately performs a term query into the database?
So for me, it takes every single query and embeds it, and then and also so I'm just trying to think, because I have a few different flows. It actually is a combination of both. Partly semantic search, because it does a semantic search through the people tables, right? Because I said I have different tables that are just tables, right? Like I have a table that shows people and like Ray's there. Okay, that's a semantic search, just because we're gonna search just by that. And then there's searching through the actual, vectorized database, which that means that's a separate search, so the query is processed and then put through that search as well. So, and then taking all of that information and then consolidating it, presenting it back to the AI agent that then is able to add further intelligence into, interpreting that information, re-ranking too, all that stuff, actually, which is why I like Cloudflare AI Search. I didn't show it, but there's settings in there that you can set. Oh, I want it to re-rank, and I want the chunking size to be this big, and I want, well, when it's doing the processing, but also when you actually make a query to it. So yeah, to answer the question though, it's a combination of both.
Right, makes sense. And coming now back to David's thoughts for finding the answer, which is hidden across different places in our database. The thing is, you need a very good working searching feature. I think back to your case, for the case of the password, and even for the IndaList in the app, because from my understanding, it's how do we store the data in the SQL database, like the images with the labels and the tags, and those information can be converted into embeddings, or also linked to other tabs with information. And then from the search point of view, you have to perform the combination, like Robert's case study is doing, perform the semantic search and also the query of the term, and try to find, okay, from those data, what is the most relevant one, number one.
Okay, when I was building my database, here I have a table, and what I discovered, maybe you have too, is that data searches on text is considerably slower than it is for numeric data. And so what I have done is to digitize these tags so that their ID is actually a timestamp. And by using a timestamp, I can search that incredibly fast, and then I label that so that's cross-referenced.
I like that. That's very smart. I like that idea. That's a really good idea. I like that.
I'm gonna remember that for sure because that is very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Now, one of the things that I discovered about phones is that if you upload a new version of your application to your phone, it resets all your auto-generated IDs. And that'll fuck you over because then all of your relationships go out the window.
Yeah.
So,
We can one app, I suppose. That's why. Because you're making mobile. Hey.
yeah. And so, every time a user updates the version of their app, everything is fucked unless you have a stable ID. So I have a timestamp for the stable ID, and then I let the application SQLite to assign a ID that's auto-generated to keep them happy. But I only work with the stable ID for all of my tables. And I use a timestamp because that's down to microseconds, or milliseconds rather. And I don't have to worry about it being unique at all because, it's going to be unique regardless.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. And it's also very, I think just illuminating and how, again, this all depends on the specific context of what we're working in. Like just the fact that you're doing it on mobile introduces this new aspect to it that I haven't even had to think about or consider because of the fact that I'm doing it on, as a web app or as an MCP.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the entirety of this huge server at Xano that can, churn out these numbers. And then you've got AI with immense power capacity to churn through text. And, I've got a much smaller database that I can work with, but it can still hold up to, say, 10,000, 20,000 records easily. And store all that information, including images.
Yeah.
And man, those are some of the constraints that I've had to work through and around in order to get this to work efficiently. And that was one of the strategies that we had to refactor the entire app about 6 months ago, so it used these stable IDs everywhere. It was a big factor.
It's not fun.
No, it was not fun at all, but had to be done. So anyway.
No, that's really cool. And like I appreciate you sharing that with me. I feel like I actually learned quite a lot really from your perspective. I really appreciate that, David.
Oh.
Absolutely. David, you share a lot of useful information and thoughts for us and incredible learnings. And Joanne, since we're at the end of the hour, I would love to thank you a lot for the participation and the sharing of your knowledge. It was an incredible conversation.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I really enjoyed it. I think it'd be amazing. I think it'd be a great conversation to chop up and to put up on YouTube or whatever you think is best. I feel like we talked about a lot of stuff that people would be interested in.
Real lot. Ray has invited me to share what I'm doing on his in his space, and now that I pretty much finished up the app as far as a minimum viable product, that's my intention. I mean, it's up on TestFlight and Apple, and either one of you are certainly welcome to sign up to be one of the volunteers to test this out and just check it out and see how it works.
We'd be happy.
Absolutely.
If I could, do you mind dropping a link if you have one here, or whenever you're ready? Maybe that's going to come at Ray's time.
Yeah, well, let me do that through state change.
No worries, of course.
And I actually in the app I have a way to share a QR code for both the sign up sheet and the website itself. So if you have the web or the app, you can hold it up and then tap something and share the QR code with other people. And so that's one of the things that I had to put together. But yeah, probably in the next couple of days, I'll have that up on Ray's website as soon as I wrangle ChatGPT into doing this last thing correctly.
It would be a pleasure.
You bet. Take care.
Take care.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
It's a pleasure.
Hey.
Have a good one. Bye. Bye-bye.